Hey, welcome back, everybody. So, this is going to be the watch list for Monday, July 28th. Hard to believe that we are actually going into August, and before you know it, we're going to be wrapping up the third quarter. But let's talk second quarter earnings, and let's start with this week's major economic news. So, Monday, we don't have anything that's on the docket, but the entire rest of the week is jam packed with all kinds of data as well as company earnings. So let's start with the data side. Tuesday, we have a lot going on with the U.S. trade balance and goods, retail inventories, wholesale inventories. So we should get a little bit better perspective here as to how much stockpiling was happening in advance to the actual tariffs going into place, which is right now set for August 1st, but we'll see what happens, right? Every time we have a date and we get to that date, the date gets kicked further down the road. So, not exactly sure if the president is going to stick with his August 1st deadline for tariffs. We'll just have to kind of wait and see. We're going to have home prices that are going to come in also on Tuesday. Consumer confidence, I would think, should be fairly strong, predominantly because the stock market keeps hitting all-time highs. So when your 401k is going up, your overall net worth is going up, you typically will feel pretty good about the world and your overall financial situation. Now, that's clearly with the higher end of income earners, right? Now, the converse piece of that is people that are struggling, living paycheck to paycheck, having home affordability issues, then that could definitely skew things in the opposite direction. But we'll have to listen to what the narrative is overall and see how that impacts the markets. And then we're going to have job openings. So let's talk a little bit more about jobs. So last month, ADP came out with really bad numbers for employment. Okay, so they said that more and more companies were laying off people, and then the government comes out and says, actually, no, ADP is wrong. The jobless numbers were better than expected. So we're going to have private payroll numbers that are going to be on Wednesday from ADP. Okay, we're going to want to watch that. Also GDP, this is going to be a very important number. And then we have FOMC interest rates. So are they going to raise rates? Are they going to lower rates? Are they going to basically sit pat? My guess is the FOMC isn't going to do anything on Wednesday. Now, mind you, Wednesday morning, I would highly encourage you not to trade, okay, at least until after the press conference is over. Why is that? Because options premiums will be super expensive and you're not going to get the volatility move in either direction that you need in order to profit exponentially from options contracts. Now, if you want to trade futures, totally different story. But as far as options go, I would just sit the morning out, which is exactly what I'm going to do. Thursday, here we go. We're going to have then the government's perspective as to, well, what are initial jobless claims doing? Are they getting better? Are they getting worse? What's the overall employment cost index? And then we're going to look at some income and spending numbers. Now, this is going to be very important as well as the PCE, which are your inflationary numbers to say, basically, are people spending what they're earning, or are they saving more of what they're earning because of uncertainty? And then again, on Friday, more U.S. employment numbers, the overall unemployment rate. Now, the unemployment rate, again, is still hovering at really, really low levels, right? 4.1, 4.2%. Wages are staying in line, although they're ticking up a little bit. Nothing to really be concerned about. Then we're going to also want to watch manufacturing, construction spending, and then again, the final consumer sentiment number. Auto numbers, not anticipating that that's going to be a big move, but you're really going to want to see what happens from Wednesday on, right? What does Jerome Powell say? Okay, that is going to be a very key deciding factor as to how the news is received going into Thursday with unemployment and inflation numbers, and then also going into Friday with the overall spending ISM, and then again, the government's release of their data. Will it be in line with ADP? Or is it going to contradict ADP like it did last month? So A lot of data flowing. Good news is most of it is before the bell rings, so we ought to get a directional bias to the upside or to the downside. But again, we are trading at all-time highs, so any glitch or fly in the ointment could send the market somewhat lower. Now, let's take a look at earnings. We have a lot of companies that are going to be announcing earnings, some very important ones, and those are the ones that I'm going to highlight this morning with you. So we're going to look at Boeing, UPS, we have StarBucks, then we have some technology, heavy tech, right? Meta, Microsoft. We're going to also have some more financials with Robinhood, SOFI. We have Apple. We have some of the Bitcoin companies, which are going to be Coinbase, as well as MicroStrategy, now known as Strategy. And then again, into the coin side, Roblox, and what is happening with some of the gaming side of the business. And then finally, we'll talk a little bit about oil with ExxonMobil and Chevron, but these should definitely be some market movers to the upside or to the downside that will reinforce that, yes, we should be trading at all-time highs, or no, we probably need a little bit of a pullback. So let's take a look at the actual ETFs. So you can see SPY here has just been on this consistent move higher. So we've had less volatility to the upside and to the downside in SPY than what we've had with overall QQQ. So technology has been more risk on, risk off, risk on, risk off. That's why you're getting these much bigger wicks with overall technology, right? So as Apple, Microsoft, Meta, Google are moving the market, you'll see that the range is much wider in QQQ than it is in SPY. So SPY has just been a consistent, gradual grind higher over the last couple weeks. Let's look at some of the names that are going to be announcing earnings. UPS, this is one that has literally thrown out, right, baby with the bathwater, where we were trading at ridiculous levels in the past, all the way up to, $200, $240 a share when we were back in COVID, okay? And now the market has come down, right? Found a nice base here at basically $93, $94, and now it is gradually grinding higher. This is one, again, that they have earnings coming out, so I think you wait for the earnings to post. But right now, we're at a pretty decent inflection point to say, could this thing get a bounce to move to the upside? I would think so. I mean, again, let's look at this on a higher time frame chart, right? We were all the way up here at 232. This stock is less than 50% of what it was back here in February of 22, right? Coming out of COVID, and then it's just been on a gradually decline. They found some base here, which also matches up here back in 2020, back here in 2019. So I would like to watch this one for a play to the upside. And are we able to hold this 102.76? So this one, again, going into earnings, these are your price levels that I would watch to potentially go higher. We have Meta announcing earnings. This one coming off, again, it's double top here, where it topped out at 740. We were able to get above it momentarily, but then it's pulled back. Again, I typically will not play a stock going into earnings, but I'm going to watch all of these levels once earnings is released to figure out, where will we stop? Could we bounce higher? Will we move higher? And will we reject? So the levels here are important for after earnings are announced. Now, if you're going to try to play a stock into earnings, just understand you're going to be paying up for volatility. Premiums are going to be more expensive. It's going to be much harder to trade because you're probably not going to get the move until the actual earnings are released. One that I do like for more upside potential, unless they come out with some really negative news here, would be Boeing. And this one you might want to look at because the options contracts are going to be probably relatively inexpensive. But just watching Boeing for a potential gap fill to the upside, we're in demand. We really don't have any supply until we get up here. And then note we have these little tiny gaps that are up above. So this one I definitely think you might want to look at for a potential swing with earnings coming out. So could be a good catalyst, definitely to the upside, but I would want to look and see what are the actual premiums. One that's been a high flyer that I think, again, has been a bit on a downtrend, but seems to get a really good bounce is going to be Carvana, right? This thing was actually left for dead at one point in time, resurgence. I mean, just astronomical how they've taken this company, both public and private, but we are at a decent bounce level here at 328.21. So if we get some good market momentum before they announce earnings, I think this is one, again, that you could play for a potential bounce. This thing has been super strong, so I don't necessarily want to short it. But look at where it was, right? We got all the way up here in 2021 to $376. Then they took it all the way down to $9. And now we're back up here to $332. This thing has just been on a tear with a ton of volatility. So names like this typically are going to be expensive from a premium perspective, right? Because people are hedging one way or the other. But if you could get a nice intraday bounce, that is something that I would watch for. Now on weakness, we do have a gap fill below where I would watch for a bounce at the top of the gap to potentially go higher. I did mention Bitcoin, that we have some of the coin companies that are going to be announcing, MicroStrategy as well as Coin. Keep bouncing off this 387 level, rejecting up here between 400 and 405. So again, we have buyers and sellers that are pretty much equally balanced. We'll want to watch how this opens on Monday. But if Bitcoin holds, I would definitely, if we can come down here to 387, look for a bounce for this one to move to the upside. And what you can do, right, if you want, is you can add an alert on the zone that will go ahead and notify you that once price is reached, so let's go ahead and add this. Once we hit it only once, we'll create an alert so we don't have to sit and watch the stock. We will just let the system do the hard work for us. Let's go ahead and look at Roblox. This is another one. Lot of volatility. We have a good trend up, at least on the shorter duration time frame. If I'm going to go ahead and zoom out on this one, again, this thing has just been on a tear to the upside. So do look for some potential consolidation here. Now, here's what I would watch. So let's go ahead and turn off the supply and demand. And I think you'll find this absolutely interesting, right? If we go ahead and we do a fib from the pivot high to the pivot low, they're rejecting the 50 fib. So on some weakness, I would look for us to at least come back down here to the pivot low, and then ultimately consolidation down here to the 104 level. Now, if you're watching this to the upside, right, look at exactly what they did where they bounced it, right? So we had a pivot low here all the way to this high. This candle low comes down and touches the 50 fib. We're getting a bounce higher, but we're rejecting. So we are now trading between the fibs. So you could use these fib levels as your guidelines, right? Your 50 here for your reject, your 50 here for your bounce. Watch for it to excel through the fibs to keep going higher. Watch it to break below the fib to actually keep going lower. So I'm going to go ahead and save those, and we'll take a look at those during the week. MicroStrategy, another one, lots of volatility just like Tesla, all in Bitcoin, right? This is Michael Saylor's company. But if we break below 403, we definitely have room down here to this 384. Watching overall fair amount of heavy demand, but also if you get a pullback down to this 403, watch this thing also for a bounce, okay? This thing, again, like Tesla, very volatile. If we break the level, don't know that I would want to short it, but could you also get a bounce right here at this 200 SMA, which is also on an interim level basis, kind of right here where they keep bouncing it, right? So let's go ahead and throw an interim level here, and they're rejecting, and then they're bouncing it, right? So this is kind of your level that I wouldn't go short unless we could get below this 397.29. Let's go ahead and take a look at SOFI. So this is one of the financials that's going to be reporting back to, almost their higher levels that they've been at for months, right? Let's go back. 28 was the all-time high in this. Right now we're trading at 21. This is going to be heavily dependent upon student loans and student loan repayments, which are, for the most part, no longer in deferment by definition, according to the federal government. So you'll want to wait and see what this one does. I don't know that it has much more upside potential, in all honesty. I mean, it's just run from $10 all the way up to 20. It's 100% ROI on this thing. and I would possibly look for a short position if it can't seem to hold much momentum. So right here, right around this 2075 is an area that looks pretty good to potentially go short. Let's take a look at Starbucks. So Starbucks rallied significantly higher, obviously, on that they were getting a new CEO. You'll kind of see this double top up here. So we'll go ahead and save that. But clearly, we're nowhere near this 98. But this one has also had a lot of downgrades, right? To the fact that it's no longer a buy. It's pretty much overvalued. They're trying to figure out how to sell their China business. But if you can get below 90.41 right here, or even 93.75 going into earnings, I think this one is a good short candidate. Quite a bit of range, right? But we do have a nice interim level that they were rejecting, rejecting, and then support, right? Reject, support, reject, and so 93 and change, right? Got a fair amount of overall demand here. So again, could look for a potential bounce on the open, or if they fail it with some weakness going lower to the downside. We have Microsoft that's going to have earnings this week. This one, if this does not have really good earnings, I would think that it's going to have a fairly precipitous sell-off because of how far that it has ran. Not only that, but this thing was essentially left for dead, right? Down here at $350. Now it's trading at $520. So this is the one tech stock that was rolling over while everything else was still going higher during the overall change in administration. So even July of 24, right, really stuck in this zone. And then in January of 25, it was the only one selling off while everything else was rallying. It is obviously caught a bid predominantly on obviously AI, and it's going hand in hand with NVIDIA. But clearly, look at this thing. I mean, just what a tear. But if it doesn't meet the valuation, this one should get a fairly precipitous sell-off. Apple, we've been playing this one several times throughout the week. This has been a really good one, in all honesty, actually, just to trade. And let me show you what we've been doing. So I've taken quite a few trades on this one, but we were getting up here to this 212, play for a reject, right? And then we've been using this 212.97. The reject, as we've been using it, is also support to go higher. And we've taken a couple of those trades as well over the past week. So we're in a fairly narrow range here. When we start to fail to the downside, I don't like for puts. I like just to wait for calls at this 211.92 or calls at this 212.97. And again, so if you're going to take calls here and it doesn't hold, this is your stop out level, one below. But we've had some really good catches on Apple to the upside. And this one's been insanely volatile. On the open, they run it up, sell it off, right? Run it up, sell it off. Look at how they do this. Keep running it up, selling it off. So this one, definitely watch. We have a gap fill up above. So if we do have some good market momentum, this one could potentially move up to fill the gap. But also, again, we do have earnings on Apple, so be cognizant of that right here. It's going to be on Thursday, so we'll probably have quite a bit of volatility, but these volatile stocks have been the great ones to trade, right? You can see pushing it up, selling it off, pushing it up, selling it off, right? They're doing, again, push it up, sell it off. So I kind of want to watch for this reoccurring theme right here on the open. This one is definitely a name I'm going to be watching. Look, bounce here, right? Bounce, short failure, and then they get back above this 213.92, and, do they go ahead and rally this thing into earnings? Okay. We have Amazon that's coming up with earnings this week. We're between levels, 230 and 233. So this one, I would just sit patient and see if we can get down here to 230 for a bounce, 233 for a reject. Other than that, not seeing too much in Amazon. And then let's just finish up with two oil names. ExxonMobil, again, another one that's been in this really nice defined trend area. You can see how every time they get it up to this 110, back here, reject, 110, reject, 110, reject, right? Then they use it as support. We're kind of rejecting this 110.54 right now. So depending if oil is strong or weak, if it's weak, I would be looking for puts. right? Let's just go ahead and take this lower. Let's take a fib here just from this prior pivot, high to the low, just to see where do we line up. Yeah, they never even made it up to the 50 fib. So this thing is showing some relative weakness. But keep an eye on the fib. We'll save that if they do get some strength for here for a reject to potentially head lower. But right now, I do like this one back to the downside. And then the last one, Chevron CVX, has been in a decent uptrend here. You could see that, but we're kind of topping out at this 155. I do think that there's some more room to the upside. So look at this one from a pivot high to a low. This one is much stronger than ExxonMobil, right? So I would not want to be fighting this overall trend, okay? They brought it up to the 50 fib. They failed it, but then they recovered it to the 618. Now they're bouncing lower price levels in the lower 50 to go potentially higher. So this one I actually like to the upside on strength, and then you could play ExxonMobil to the downside on weakness. So lots of names this week, a ton of earnings, and with that, just be patient. Let earnings get announced. Make sure you know what date they're going to be announcing on, right? Because the day of is usually not going to be a very good day to be trading options on it, because everybody's just going to be waiting for the news. So with that, everybody, have a fantastic week, and I will see you all tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. for live trading. With that, take care. See you all tomorrow.